This is Sophia, and welcome to part 4 in my podcast series. You can also skip ahead to my at-home experience if you want. I'm going to go ahead and rewind back to part 3, where I explain my in-clinic experience. I'm going to start off from when I walked into the clinic. I had to show my ID, and I had also had to give them my 24-hour consent form, and also the paperwork that I had signed. I had to sign 4 things: my name, my birthday, my last missed period, and an emergency contact, like a friend or a family member. I used my mother. I had to initial several things agreeing to the information provided to me, like the type of abortions, agreeing to have an ultrasound, and also patient rights and HIPAA rights, like the right to know the name of your service providers, things like that. And so after 20 more minutes, I was called and had a bracelet with my name and date of birth on it, like an ID bracelet. And I was called maybe 20 more minutes later, so I was here for 40 minutes already waiting, and no one could come into the back except other patients. No one could go in with me. But in other clinics, sometimes they'll let someone come back to you, like your partner. There was another waiting room in the back with other women. Some will talk, some won't. I like to talk, but if a woman shows no interest, then I won't pursue the conversation. There was a young girl, a freshman in high school, and she drove from a city about 40 miles away. It's about like an hour away. And she was raped by her ex-boyfriend, and nobody knew about it except for her mom, who was with her. And after I talked with her, I was called in for an ultrasound after 10 minutes or so, and I never really actually saw her after that. But they ask you if you want a picture of your ultrasound and if you want to know if there are twins or multiple. The nurse said that she can tell if there are twins or triplets from the very start. I didn't have twins or anything like that. And if you are not asked if you want a picture and you do want a picture, then ask them. They can give you one. I have also known women who have framed their picture just to have a memory of it. Now, they'll also ask you if you have health problems, when your last missed period was, all of that stuff. A cold gel is put on your stomach and they press down on your uterus. I was barely 6 weeks, so she had to do a vaginal ultrasound, and what they do is cover a wand with the same gel, and you stick it up your vagina yourself. There was a clearer picture on the monitor that way for her. So after that, after I got my picture, I went back to that waiting room with the other woman where I met that freshman girl, and then I was called about 10 minutes later again to get my blood pressure and my blood drawn, height and weight. If your blood type is negative, you pay more than if your blood type is positive because they administer something extra to you so your body doesn't resist. After that, I went to go see a counselor immediately after that. First, the counselor makes sure that you are confident in your decision. If you're unsure, they will give you resources on parenting and adoption, and you can just leave at that point if you want to. They'll also ask who knows about your pregnancy, if they're supportive about your abortion. They'll ask if you're in a relationship. They'll ask if it's healthy and if your partner is or isn't influencing your decision. If you're in an abusive relationship, they give you resources, a website, and a hotline to call. She also went over a few papers with me, like the procedure and how it's done. You take one pill that stops the pregnancy today, and then tomorrow I take the second pill that causes the contractions at home. They gave me an emergency 24-hour number to call if I needed it, and a paper that told me that if I soak through 2 maxi pads in like an hour, I should call them. And a paper, this paper on your screen, that told me that if I soak through 2 maxi pads in like an hour, I should call them. It could be excessive bleeding and you might have to go to the emergency room. So there's that. And they also give you a doctor's note. If you miss school or work, you can ask for one. And they also give you a note to give to the ER if I needed to go there, so the ER knows what drugs I took. With that information, I went to go see the doctor. I waited for him, and then I signed something saying that I was given all the information, that I saw the counselor, and what pills were going to be administered to me. I had to sign, date, and time this form. Then the doctor put his signature on there too. You can ask the doctor any questions you have. The doctor said legally, I was required to wait 30 minutes. And during this time, if I've changed my mind, I have to notify the front desk before I leave. I also paid the fee at the front desk at this time. So I went ahead and paid $500, and I waited 30 minutes in the original waiting room with my partner, and then I was called back again. A nurse gave me some water first and showed me the pills I needed to take at home with me and put them in a brown bag, like a sack. And the doctor was going to come in to administer the mifepristone drug to me. But first, the nurse told me to take this antibiotic at dinner time. It was 10:30 a.m. in the morning when I was at the clinic. So she said at around 6 or 7 p.m. to take this antibiotic. This is to prevent any infection in my uterus. So she went ahead and put that in the brown bag. Next, she gave me some pills that I was supposed to take in 23 hours before the misoprostol. So around 9 to 10 o'clock the next day, I was supposed to take anti-nausea pills so I do not throw up the misoprostol. Some clinics will give you an anti-nausea suppository instead. So she went ahead and put the anti-nausea pill in the brown bag. Then she showed me a painkiller. Actually, it was a bottle of them. It's Tylenol, which is acetaminophen, but it also had codeine in it. They ask if you have any allergies to medicine like this, like hydrocodone or something like that. If you do, they just give you plain acetaminophen. But the painkiller had codeine in it, whatever. It's a stronger combination. She gave me a bottle of 10 pills. And she said that I can take these painkillers every 4 hours. And I was supposed to take the first dose in 23 hours after the anti-nausea pills. So she went ahead and put that bottle in the brown bag. After the nausea and painkiller pills, I'm supposed to take the misoprostol. And she showed me the 4 misoprostol tablets. Now in the USA and Canada, they usually tell you to put them in your cheeks and let them dissolve for 30 minutes. In Europe, I've noticed, maybe in Asia too, I've noticed sometimes they'll tell you to put them in your vagina as close to your cervix as you can and let them dissolve this way too. The nurse told me that they go into my bloodstream and not my stomach. So if I throw up a little later, I should be okay as long as it's not immediately after. But that's what the anti-nausea pills are for. So she went ahead and put the 4 misoprostol tablets, the bottle of it, into the brown bag. The nurse told me no heavy activities, no lifting, and no jogging. I can do things around the house afterwards to move around, like squats or doing dishes, but no baths, no jacuzzis, no hot tubs, and no swimming for 4 weeks. Nothing goes into the vagina for at least 4 weeks either. No tampons, douches, fingers, vibrators, penis, no whatever, can't go in there because it can cause an infection in your uterus. And your cervix is very open during this time. Then the doctor came in and gave me the mifepristone, which is the anti-progesterone pill that stops the pregnancy from growing. It's a large pill, 200 milligrams, and I took it with water. So he administered that to me. He said to wait 20 minutes in the lobby, and if I throw up, they'll give me a new one. But I didn't. During this whole process, you can eat and drink normally, but no alcohol, and smoking isn't recommended either. So my at-home experience. At dinner time, I took my antibiotic. I was not bleeding, but I did have a few cramps. Bleeding is not abnormal with the first pill, with the mifepristone, but I didn't have any. I was at the clinic from 8:30 a.m. to around 11 a.m., so I was there for roughly 3 hours. Sometimes these appointments can last up to 6 hours long. That night, I couldn't sleep much, so I was very tired in the morning. I was with my boyfriend and my mother. She came in a little bit later too. At 10 a.m., I took the anti-nausea pills, and then I took 2 Tylenol codeine pills 30 minutes after the anti-nausea pills. So my mother came in and helped me prep the bed. I had black underwear on and I put a pad on it. I had a red towel on the bed and I had an absorbent underpad on top of it. I also warmed up a heating pad. I had to wait nearly an hour to take the misoprostol, so I made my boyfriend some peanut butter chocolate chip waffles, and I did the dishes while I waited, and then I took the misoprostol. Do not swallow them. Don't swallow the pills whole. If you do, you will have the worst cramps ever. You will become super dizzy and nauseous, and almost immediately you'll be nauseous and start bleeding, and it's awful. So you might pass out too. So just don't swallow them. I just want to make a reminder of that. I did follow the doctor's orders this time, and I put the 4 pills between my teeth and my cheeks. 2 pills on either side of my mouth so they'd slowly dissolve. They're chalky, and I moved them down a little, like around my gums, because I didn't want to taste it. It's really gross. But you'll have this buildup of saliva, and you'll have to swallow the saliva a little bit at a time. But wait for the chalky pills to dissolve before swallowing, like in tiny amounts. I swallowed little bits at a time. So I just watched TV while the pills were dissolving in my mouth. You'll feel light cramping during this time. Make sure you wait 30 minutes, if not more, and keep swallowing a little bit at a time as the saliva builds up. After 30 minutes, I tried to drink the rest down with water, but it tasted awful and the texture was gross. So my boyfriend cut up an apple, and I tried to swallow it with the apple and water, and it was a little bit better. I kept watching TV, and after 15 minutes, I wasn't bleeding and I was barely cramping. So I freaked out, and I'm like, why is this not working? Did it fail? I was freaking out, and my mom said to, just walk around a little bit. So we went to the back porch. I did a few squats, and 20 minutes later, I started some cramping. So I lied down, and I just had my underwear on with my blanket over me in the bed, and I just waited it out. This was about 45 minutes after the pills had dissolved. The cramping starts out light, and then it just kind of hits you. It just kind of hit me. You'll feel it in your uterus. It's like something is moving around, like something's trying to climb out of you almost. And I put a heating pad on it, and that really didn't help much. But oh my God, it gets really bad. And then it gets worse. About an hour or hour and a half after the pills dissolved, I started cramping like a motherfucker, and I kept looking down like, why am I not bleeding yet? I was cramping, but I wasn't bleeding. I still wasn't bleeding, but I was cramping to the point where I couldn't stay still. I couldn't breathe. My boyfriend was holding my hand, but it was like my senses had gone haywire. I was sensitive to smell, to touch. I didn't want anybody to touch me. I was sensitive to noises. Even my mother grabbed a bag of chips and ate them in the kitchen, and I was like, go away. I was like, just go away. I told her to leave. I cursed, and I yelled, and I screamed profanities, and I cried, and I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't talk. It was even hard to cry. It was that bad. It was so bad, and it'll hurt like that for nearly 2 hours. It hurt like that for about 2 hours, but that's not all. Afterwards, you'll literally have contractions. Like, that's not even the worst part. You're going to have contractions. And that also lasted about another hour. So the way contractions feel is it's a strong pain. It's not really a sharp pain. It's just like a lot of pain. It's strong for about 15 seconds, okay? You'll have it for 15 seconds, and then it dies down. It decrescendos, and then it just stops. The pain completely stops for like 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. And I could talk for those 5 seconds if I needed something, but then it hits you again and it immediately starts again. 15 seconds on, 3 to 5 seconds off. And this goes on for like an hour, maybe more. And my mom was gone out running errands, like after I yelled at her about like an hour ago or whatever. But my boyfriend was like, okay, you need to take ibuprofen. So during those 5 seconds of no pain during my contractions where it decrescendoed, I sat up and I took ibuprofen as fast as I could. I immediately felt nauseous, like, oh my God. For some reason, after I just took like 1 or 2 pills of that ibuprofen, and I knew I was going to throw up. I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I'm going to throw up. And I couldn't run to the bathroom because I felt like I knew I was going to pass out. So I threw up like half on the bed and half on the floor, and I was trying to hold the rest in, and he finally comes in with a bucket lined with a plastic bag. So I did throw up in that. It was mostly water because I hadn't eaten that day. It was ibuprofen and just water, and I had nothing to eat except a little bit of that apple earlier. That's why you shouldn't eat too much that day, and that's also why you should keep a bucket nearby to vomit in. I didn't know that before. There was vomit in my hair, and I had a heating pad and a hot water bottle on, and I put the hot water bottle on my vulva between my legs and the heating pad on my uterus. Then I just kind of passed out. I don't remember much. I just passed out. I remember my mom coming back after I dozed off for a bit, and we told her what happened, that I threw up. And my contractions had also died down, especially with the heat on my uterus, with the heating pad. So I looked down, and I was bloody when I woke up, and I told my mom I was going to take a shower to get this stuff out of my hair. And there was, like, blood up my ass crack. I was so gross. I asked her to, please change the sheets when I'm in the shower. Like, I asked her if she could help me with that. And I couldn't go into the shower alone, so my boyfriend came with me. And I went onto the toilet, and a clot came out, and it was gross and bloody, and cramps started again, and I was very lightheaded, like, as soon as I went to the bathroom. And I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I need to be quick or I'm going to pass out. I need to take, like, a 10-second shower, and you need to be there. And I have long hair. I have really long hair, so it takes forever to wash. But I went in, and he helped me, and I couldn't sit down, like, on a stool in the shower or anything, because of the immense cramping. And if you do sit down in the shower, you bend at your uterus pretty much, so it makes the pain even worse. So I had to, like, stand. So I shampooed my hair, and I was yelling at him, giving him instructions, like, give me the shampoo, give me the soap, stuff like that, And it's because I knew I was going to faint, and I needed these things as quickly as I could. So I tried to wash my hair as best as I could, and I tried to wash down there as fast as I could around my vagina and stuff between my legs. But then I told my boyfriend, I'm going to pass out. I know I'm going to pass out. I yelled at him, like, you have to catch me now, because I was whiting out. I told him, you're going to have to catch me, because I could feel myself just kind of blanking out. I told him I can't see, I can't hear. There's that faint, like, ringing noise in your ears when you pass out, or like when you're about to, you know what I mean? When you're whiting out. And I don't remember what he was telling me, because there's a ringing in my ears and I couldn't hear. But I think he asked me if I wanted to sit on the toilet, and I'm like, no, take me to the bed. So he carried me to the bed, and the sheets were changed already, and my hair was wet, and I passed out again. Don't get up, or don't get up alone. Go to the bathroom with somebody when you go, or have somebody near you, with you. My boyfriend lined another pad for me, but I was bleeding a lot. You'll be changing your pad so often. My under pad was soaked also. Nothing was on the towel underneath the underpad, but the underpad was soiled. So we changed it. I passed out. I had wet hair. There was probably still shampoo in it, to be honest. And so I woke up, and I had a heating pad on me and the hot water bottle in between my legs, and the pain mostly stopped. It was around 5 or 6 o'clock p.m. at that time when I woke up after I passed out again. I took the misoprostol pills around 11 o'clock a.m., so it had been well over 6-7 hours already, and I was hungry. My mother stayed while my boyfriend ordered food. He went out and got food, and it was the only meal I had that day. I had soup, and I was fine. I didn't feel sick or anything. I went to the bathroom again to pass the clots when I woke up. I had cramps and bleeding, but it wasn't nearly as bad as earlier that day during the contractions and when I first took the pills. I remember telling my boyfriend, like, holy shit, man, what a day. I was really depressed and weak. I didn't feel like doing anything, so we just watched Netflix, and that's it. I took a painkiller, and it's good to go to the bathroom every 3 hours or so just to pass the clots, even though I didn't really need to pee. I didn't sleep well that night. It's good to take the next day off too, if you can. I know if you're missing school or work or something like that, I would still recommend taking the next day off just to rest. You'll still be bleeding a lot too, so I switched to my absorbent period underwear. I didn't change that underwear for nearly 2 days because it's really durable. It absorbs an ocean. It was my Dear Kate's underwear. My bleeding stopped for after 6 days. No, it was a little bit over a little bit over a week actually. I still wore panty liners around that time, and the bleeding definitely gets lighter. You'll also lose a lot of blood, so you'll be lightheaded. Make sure to keep hydrated. Lots and lots of water. Take vitamins if you can, because you do lose some nutrients, and that can cause or prolong depression. If you start taking birth control immediately after a medical abortion and you keep bleeding and you do not stop bleeding, switch your birth control, just as a tip. Anyways, this has been part 4 in my abortion experience and information podcast series. Next is part 5, surgical. My surgical experience and information about surgical if you want to know more. So moving on to part 5, or you can skip to part 6, which is resources and support group information.